It's hard for me to speak. I did not expect a massive conflict over this again. I didn't think you guys would be surprised. I recorded last year's meeting, if you recall. So, I have told you before, I cannot actually remember everything that is said at these meetings. And it's important to me that we take what we say here seriously, and that we're held accountable for what we say here. And the only way to do that is to have an accurate record of these meetings. Massive conflict over this. And so again. I record the meetings. I didn't think you guys would be surprised. I recorded last year's meeting.
The point is that
if you recall. So
being a commissioner, it is different than a member of the public recording the meeting, and we have no official recording device here. So we can't record it and have it be an actual official recording. And that's a difference. But
calling the meeting to order at 3:33. This is Jefferson County Public Hospital District Number 2 Board of Commissioners meeting, and Commissioner Bueller is excused. And could I ask you what is in front of you? Are you recording this meeting?
yeah, I'm making an audio recording of this meeting as
calling the meeting to order at 3:33. This is Jefferson County Public Hospital District Number 2 Board of Commissioners meeting, and Commissioner Bueller is excused. And could I ask you what is in front of you? Are you recording this meeting?
yeah, I'm making an audio recording of this meeting as to help me remember what has happened.
Okay. Actually, that sounds like a good opening for a discussion about doing something like that. One of the concerns with the Public Meetings Act, as it is being recorded, and the Public Hospital District is responsible for safekeeping, and so it can all be accessed. Maybe this is something that you want to step in and step into the time with.
Yeah, I think that I believe there was going to be a discussion at tonight's meeting about recording board meetings, which I think is a reasonable thing to discuss. There are implications associated with recording board meetings. That recordings become part of the record and is also part of the Open Public Meeting Act and Records Act. So a recording provided by a hospital recording for the purpose of records has to be disclosed when requested, and any recording by a board member, according to council, would be considered that official record. So I think what the discussion tonight was going to go along the lines of discussing it at the board level, and then if the board is interested in pursuing that, to direct administration to develop a policy, a procedure, and a methodology to make sure that we do it correctly. It's in line with our Record Retention Act and Open Public Meeting Response team, and we do it right. So I think the recommendation from council is that absent of the hospital doing it, that a board member should not.
Well, based on my research, I don't think that's accurate. I mean, this is a public meeting. Citizens have a certain right to record these meetings. I don't surrender that right because I'm a commissioner, just like we each have the right to vote. You know, we have certain rights, the right to breathe, have the right to take notes. I don't think I would disagree with that assessment of what is legal, or that this constitutes a board act. This is an act as a private citizen.
Well, it might be an act of a private citizen, but because you are a board member, just like the notes you take at a board meeting, they are subject to the Open Public Record Act. So that any tape that you record is also subject to that act. So it becomes part of the record. And it's a recommendation from council looking after the interest of the organization that if Jefferson Healthcare begins to record our meetings, that it be done through administration so that we have the tape, we have the record, we can properly store it, and we can respond to any open public meeting requests that may come down the pipe. Because it's a big thing. Some hospitals do indeed record their meetings, and it adds another layer of complexity to responding to open public record requests. So I think the ask, or I think the discussion with the rest of the board is this something that we want to pursue? And then secondly, if we are going to do it right. And council, I don't think anyone is suggesting as an individual citizen, you don't have the right to make the recording, but as a board member, council for Jefferson Healthcare is recommending you don't. In the interest of the organization and all of the implications.
Is the council recommending we not record meetings?
That until we have a policy and a procedure to make sure we can manage that recording in compliance with the Open Public Record Act, that we don't do it because it's discretionary. Organizations don't have to do it. And further, what I think was going to happen, Matt, was that there was going to be a discussion with the other members of the board to decide if that indeed is the direction that they were going to give administration.
Well, I appreciate the recommendation of council, but I'm going to continue recording the meeting. I think it's a perfectly appropriate decision. And I would completely support the board if we wanted to officially do it, and I'm happy to give. If you feel like you need a copy and to store for 7 years, I'm happy to provide that.
Well, it's not like I feel like it, that the law would require it. And the recommendation from council is that if a recording is made on behalf of the organization, and as a commissioner you would be making it on behalf of the organization, that we have our own recording.
So I will recess this board meeting at 3:39 to see if we can locate recording, some recording device, and if not, we will just have to schedule a special meeting.
All right.
Thank you.
So.
So, just so
We're
you know,
not going to record the meeting, Matt.
I'm recording it.
No, you're not.
Well, it's not our policy, is it?
Wait, is this an official meeting?
It's an official board meeting, but our policy states that we record when we're in our normal board situation, board meeting room at the hospital.
No, there's nothing that prohibits Matt from recording it. So
Yes, there is. It makes it official record.
it should be an official record if it's an official meeting.
Well, there is a legal opinion that recommends to not do this, actually, but we talked about that. And you're right.
I guess that's before my time. So.
Yeah.
So
We're just not being difficult.
You still recording?
I am recording the meeting.
Okay. We'll see you guys later. Let me know he turns it off.
Yes, no?
Sorry, my stress level is very high right now, so it's hard for me to speak. I did not expect a massive conflict over this again. I didn't think you guys would be surprised. I recorded last year's meeting, if you recall. So, I have told you before. I cannot actually remember everything that is said at these meetings. And it's important to me that we take what we say here seriously, and that we're held accountable for what we say here. And the only way to do that is to have an accurate record of these meetings. And so I record the meetings.
I think the point is that you being a commissioner, it is different than a member of the public recording the meeting, and we have no official recording device here. So we can't record it and have it be an actual official recording. And that's the difference. But I think we need to either adjourn or conclude or continue.
Could I have,
Point of order, that we do have a policy, I believe, which says that we make official recordings when we are in our official board setting in the hospital. And I believe you're aware of that. So I do take exception to the recording. We have nothing to hide, but I think that it is not something that, if we have these policies, and you're, and rightly so, very keen on following policies, and then you yourself go and break one. So I don't see what this is all about. I think it's just a barrier to trying to work for our patients, for our community, personally.
I obviously haven't been involved in this kind of discussion before, so I'm, as the new kid on the block, if you wouldn't mind. First of all, the policies that we just revised, did those, I guess I must not have read that section carefully enough. Does it say that we only record in official meetings, or does it say that we record in official meetings? I mean, I'm wondering, do the policies also say that we don't in this kind of setting? I mean, I'm just, and again, this is just a point of clarification. I don't have...
The point of clarification is that when we go, for example, to the legislature,
Sure.
We did not want to be bound to record what the legislators were saying because they may not feel free to speak.
Sure.
So for that, reason, and because it can be a logistics nightmare to have it in where we don't have control of the venue, we voted, and Matt voted for that as well, to not record anything other than the meetings that are held in our normal venue.
In that case, I would need to just check to see.
This is the Jefferson County Public Hospital District number 2 Board of Commissioners meeting, and Commissioner Bueller is excused.
Okay. Hello. Hello. Okay, we'll try this again. My name is Matt Reddy. I'm an elected public hospital commissioner in East Jefferson County, Washington. And today, I'm going to share with you a story and see if you have any thoughts on the matter. Ready, set, go. Now what we're going to do is we're going to listen to a hospital commission meeting on March 19th, 2014. Here we are at the beginning of the meeting.
Meeting to order at 3. This is Jefferson County Public Hospital District number 2 Board of Commissioners meeting. And Commissioner Bueller is excused.
Okay, so the chair of the board just introduced the meeting, East Jefferson County Public Hospital District number 2 commission meeting, and one of the commissioners, Commissioner Bueller, is absent. That is the first thing that happened. A reasonable thing to happen in a Robert's Rules of Order meeting. What happens next?
And could I ask you what is in front of you? Are you recording this meeting?
Yeah, I'm making an audio recording of this meeting to help me remember what has happened.
Okay, so the board chair notices that one of the commissioners, which is me, Matt Reddy, is recording the meeting. So I told them before the meeting I was going to audio record it. And she asks me to confirm, are you recording the meeting? And I say, yes, I'm recording the meeting. And out of the generosity of my heart, I give a reason to justify my recording, even though you don't have to give a reason. In an open public meeting, you can just record it. Anyone can, any citizen of the state. So I simply, since I was actually surprised, they decided to even point it out. It did need to be announced, appropriate to tell everyone that there's an audio recording going on, but I was surprised she called attention to it, and to me, about it. And then I was even more surprised what happened after I said I'm recording this meeting with the justification because I want to remember everything. That is my justification. I want to remember everything. This is what happened next.
Actually, that sounds like a good opening for a discussion about doing something like that. One of the concerns with the Public Meetings Act, as it is being recorded, and the Public Hospital District is responsible for safekeeping, so it can all be accessed. Maybe this is something that you want to do.
Yeah, I think that, I believe there was going to be a discussion at tonight's meeting about recording board meetings, which I think is a reasonable thing to discuss.
Okay, so this is what happens after I say I want to. I'm recording the meeting to help me remember. The board chair says something about the Open Public Records Act and is expressing some sort of concern. Hands it over to the CEO, who says, we were planning on talking about audio recordings of meetings. Now, where did this plan to talk about audio recordings come from? maybe the board chair and the CEO, in response to my email announcement out of your recording, said we should talk about this, but I didn't email them and say I want to talk about this. I was just notifying them I'm recording. I'm not interested in discussing it. In any case, all right, this is what else happened.
There are implications associated with recording board meetings. That recording will become part of the record and is also part of the Open Public Meeting Act.
So I'm sitting there, and he's saying there are implications if you record this meeting. And I'm just in shock. I'm in shock that, what is he trying to do? Is he trying to tell me? Is he trying to get me to turn off the recorder? I'm still not sure at this point. Why are you talking about the implications of my recording this meeting? I've seen many people record these meetings before. I've never seen them get sort of like the board chair and CEO sort of doing like a cross-examination of them about the act of recording. Anyways, it keeps going.
Records Act. So, a recording provided by a hospital recording for the purpose of records has to be disclosed when requested, and any recording by a board member, according to council, would be considered that official record.
Okay, so this is where my mind was blown. So the board, the CEO, just said according to council. So he's now invoking authority, council, and the law, the rule of law. So I'm sitting there, I just wanted to record the meeting, and now I'm being lectured about the authority of law that for some reason he thinks justifies what he's about to do, which is to ask me to turn off the recorder, which he is slowly building up to with all this preamble.
So, I think what the discussion tonight was going to go along the lines of discussing at the board level, and then if the board is interested in pursuing that, to direct administration to develop a policy, a procedure, and a methodology to make sure that we do it correctly. It's in line with our Record Retention Act and Open Public Meeting Response team, and we do it right. So I think the recommendation from council is that absent of the hospital doing it, that a board member should not.
So there you have it. I think the recommendation from council is that absent the board voting to record meetings, an individual commissioner should not record the meeting. And he's saying today we're going to talk about recording the meetings as a board, and we're going to decide yes or no. And if we decide no, then no is the answer, and there will be no recording. That is what he just said. It's inappropriate for you to record this meeting right now. The board wants to talk about it, and if the board chooses to record, then we'll record meetings. If the board chooses to not record, then there won't be any audio recordings of meetings. Now, what does this do to my ability to know what happened at our meetings? I've just said I'm a hospital commissioner. I want to record these meetings so I can remember everything that's said. And you're telling me that I can't do that. And you're telling me if the majority of the board votes that there's no recording, that there won't be a recording, and I won't get that. I won't get to know what happens at these meetings. I won't get to remember them, other than whatever notes I take and whatever minutes are written down. So, I mean, I cannot remember everything that is said in a 3-hour meeting. I don't have time to write it all down. and I don't have time to dispute with the other people in the room the nitty-gritty of things that were said in a meeting. The thing, what a waste of time and energy. You know what we should be talking about in a meeting is actual decisions, values. What do we want to achieve? What do we want to do with the power we have vested in us to lead a public hospital district? Not what was said at the last meeting. What was said at the last meeting is a fact. It's truth. We don't need to dispute it. We don't need to. We can record scientific evidence of it using a microphone, which is what I'm doing. And you're saying that according to counsel, they're recommending I not do it. So anyways, this is all in my brain. I didn't actually say any of this. I'm just like, I cannot believe you just said counsel is recommending that I turn it off. And this is what else happened.
Well, based on my research, I don't think that's accurate. I mean, this is a public meeting. Citizens have a certain right to record these meetings. I don't surrender that right because I'm a commissioner. Just like we each have the right to vote. We have certain rights, the right to breathe, the right to take notes. I don't think it's. I would disagree with that assessment of what is legal, or that this constitutes a board act. This is an act of a private citizen.
Well,
Okay, so I just had to come up with that on the fly based on my own research. Because I was like trying to understand their argument. Their argument being that me recording the meeting is creates a board action of recording the meeting and makes it an official record, which means then they somehow are trying to say that I no longer have the power to record the meeting. I have to give that power to the board because the board's will is more important than my personal will and more powerful, which is what their argument is. So I just said this is not a board act. This is a personal act. And I was basically implying my personal action and personal right to record is more important and more valid and supersedes the will of the board to not have a recording made. Anyways, and then, it's pretty exhausting to have this kind of public dispute. There's a lot of people in the room. There's an audience. There's like every strategic leadership member is in the room. This is not just the board. This is being witnessed by a bunch of very well-paid executives and medical professionals, as well as the public audience. And this argument, I'm just saying, has a big audience of people just sitting there listening to it.
it might be an act of citizen, but because you are a board member, just like the notes you take at a board meeting, they are subject to the open public.
Sure.
So that any tape that you
Okay, so this is a bizarre point he's making. He's saying any notes I take are subject to the Open Public Records Act, saying that if I take notes on a piece of paper, those also should be archived, like the recording for 7 years. That's what he just said. But listen, they had never taken our notes. They never take the board notes and archive them for 7 years. They ignore them completely. And so he was just stating we need to apply a standard of practice to the audio record that because that's the standard practice we apply to the notes and other written records, but we don't do that. It was a complete farce of an argument. Maybe we should, but again, it's a selective enforcement of policy to say an audio recording is more important than handwritten notes taken. Anyways, it goes on.
record is also subject to that, so it becomes part of the record. And it's a recommendation from council looking after the interest of the organization that if Jefferson Healthcare begins to record our meetings, that it be done through administration so that we have the tape, we have the record, we can properly store it and we can respond to any open public meeting requests that may come down the pipe, because it's a good thing. Some hospitals do indeed record their meetings, and it adds another layer of complexity to responding to it. Secondly, if we are going to do it right. And council, I don't think anyone is suggesting as an individual citizen, you don't have the right to make the recording, but as a board member, council for Jefferson Healthcare is recommending you don't.
Okay, so a very long-winded way of saying again, you have the right to record, but council recommends that you don't as a commissioner because it's not in the interest of the organization. That's what he's basically saying. He's saying it's not in the interest of this public hospital district to have you record this meeting. The board will decide if it's in the interest of the hospital district to be recorded. And I'm just one board member, but I've already decided it is in the interest of the people in the hospital district to have a recording. I've decided that, and I'm not changing my mind. But he's saying you don't have the power to decide that. You have to listen to counsel, according to counsel. Again, the counsel is not there. There's no lawyer in the room. This is a CEO and a chair, board chair, claiming that this counsel, this lawyer, is completely backing them up. This counsel that they spoke to before the meeting, and who, after this meeting, I will email the board chair and say, could I have the contact info, name and contact info for the lawyer that you and the CEO spoke to? And she will reply to me in email, which you can read on my website, readyforhealthcare.org. She replies to me, if you contact the lawyer, you have to pay for it yourself. So they're saying, and then, 6 years from now, they will say that the lawyers for the hospital district don't have to answer any questions from a hospital commissioner, an individual hospital commissioner. They only are obligated to answer questions from the majority of the board, from 3 board members. So they're literally saying, you can't record, you talk to a lawyer, if you want to talk to him, you have to pay for it, but really the lawyer doesn't have to talk to you at all unless you get a majority of the board to vote to join in and ask your question. Alright, so he goes on that big spiel. Now again, I have to say, no, I'm recording the meeting.
In the interest of the organization and all of the implications.
Is the council recommending you not record meetings?
I'm pretty flustered at this point, and I just am like, can you just clearly say, is the council, because I know I'm going to say I'm going to decline the council's recommendation.
That until we have a policy and a procedure to make sure we can manage that recording in compliance with the Open Public Record Act, that we don't do it. Because it's discretionary. Organizations don't have to do it. And further, what I think was going to happen was that there was going to be a discussion with the other members of the board to decide if that indeed is the direction that they were going to give administration.
Well, I appreciate the recommendation of council, but I'm going to continue recording the meeting. I think it's a perfectly appropriate decision. I know I completely support the board. If we wanted to officially do it, and I'm happy to give. If you feel like you need a copy and to store for 7 years, I'm happy to provide that.
Okay, so that was my second or third time during this meeting that I declined to stop recording. Now, this is the fun part. Everyone who cares about this story, pay attention really carefully. What happens next? The chair and the CEO are playing tag team here, and they're using this lawyer as part of their tag team, so it's a triple team. And what are they going to do? They've asked me to turn off the recorder, and I have refused like 3 times. What would you do next if you were the board chair or the CEO, and you believed it was not in the legal interest of that hospital commission to have a recording made in this way. This is what do? What do? What do you do? You have some options. They could adjourn the meeting, I suppose. Or they could talk about it more because there's other commissioners at the table. There's there's 5 total commissioners. 1 is absent. But that means Chuck Russell and Tony DeLeo are sitting there at the table not saying a word. Which is, kind of interesting. And so this is immediately what happens next.
Well, it's not like it's that the law would require it.
Okay, so the law would require, again, he's stating law like he's a lawyer, but the lawyer's not there. You really could use a lawyer to justify and explain and stand behind all this quoting of legal authority.
And the recommendation from council is that if a recording is made on behalf of the organization, and as a commissioner you would be making on behalf of the organization, that we have our own recording.
Okay. For the first time in this entire meeting, the CEO says the recommendation of council, this is a little different now, the recommendation of council is if a recording is made of this meeting, and if you do it, it would be a recording, it would become an official recording of the meeting. But if you're going to make an official recording, the organization should also make an official recording. He just said that. If you do it, he's recommending that they have to do it also. Okay. That's the first time he said this. No discussion with the other board members of what happens after this realization. No discussion of what does this mean. Well, can we record the meeting? Do we have the equipment to record the meeting? Could we also record this meeting easily today, or do we need to adjourn and buy recording equipment? None of this discussion takes place. Instead, this is what happens.
So I will recess this board meeting at 3:39 to see if we can locate recording, some recording device, and if not, we will just have to schedule a special meeting. All right, thank you.
So, yeah. Did you hear that? So she said, I'm just going to have to recess the meeting, and we're going to have to see if we can find a recording device. The CEO clearly was not surprised that this was the exact next step. And so then she says, we're recessing the meeting, we're going to search for a recording device. No one understood what happened because there was no discussion. It was a play. They had a playbook for what they were going to do. Their play number 1 was try to get Matt to turn off the recorder by telling him all this legal gobbledygook. See if that works. Try 2 or 3 times to convince Matt to turn it off. And if he absolutely refuses, then recess the meeting and go get an audio recording device. Because once they recessed the meeting, they sent the administrative assistant in the room. Very nice woman. She ran off and quickly came back with a recording device. It was still in its box and packaging. She carefully unwrapped the box and took out the directions and stood there and started reading the directions to this recording device. And I was sitting there in shock, just in shock that this was all happening. So they were on their third leg of their plan. I guess they were going to then have her either figure out how to turn on the recording device or not, and then she was going to start recording the meeting simultaneously to me recording the meeting, and then we would resume. Now, if that had happened, everything might have been fine for years to come. But when I saw her standing there reading the instructions to this recorder, trying to figure out how to record the meeting, I was just so shocked by everything they were doing to try to interfere and discourage me from recording that I chose to make a strategic retreat in my stand on audio recording. I went to the crowd. I found my friend who was also there in the audience, and I asked her if she would press record on my recording device when the meeting resumed, because I did turn it off when the meeting recessed, which I didn't have to, and in retrospect would have been actually really good to keep it going. But I did turn it off, and I brought it over to her, and I said, "Will you record this the rest of the meeting for me?" And she said, "Sure." And then I went back and I said to the chair, I said, "I'm no longer going to record the meeting." And then she told Susie to put the recorder away, so they did not record it. And then my friend spoke from the audience very bravely and said, "I'm going to record the meeting. Is that okay? Is there anything that will stop me?" And none of them. No one tried to stop her, and so she recorded the rest of the meeting. So there you go. Really, that's everything that happened for the 6 years after this is just part of basically the cover-up and attempt to whitewash the suppression of the right to record in this meeting. And because nothing really new is offered as a justification over the next 6 years for why this happens. A similar incident happens in 2016, but much more aggressive language is used. And there's emails that also, show a lot of this drama. But yeah, there you go. That's the sort of the run through of the first meeting. Stop recording and stop stream.